saw the casting announcement the same as you did. I still think the MCU is crap. Hey, what's up, Nerd fam? This is your boy Gashawn. I want to welcome you to Enter the Nerd. Today, we're talking about the casting announcement that they did for the upcoming film, Avengers Doomsday. What does it mean? Should you care? What does it have to do with the upcoming MCU? All speculation, but there are some things that ideologically seem consistent enough to come down to a conclusion, which in my opinion is more of the same, which is not very good. Let's get into it. As far as the overall cast that we see, they said it's only part of the cast so far, right? I'm not one of those people who are going, oh, where's Tom Holland or where's Chris Evans? Listen, I'm sure those guys are going to be in this movie. We see a lot of the Fox X-Men in here. We see a lot of the characters they introduced here, like Shang-Chi and Black Panther, Shuri's Black Panther, and Namor, and a whole bunch of stuff, and even like the Fantastic Four from the new film. We see that, and we understand that Doom is probably going to be related to the Fantastic Four film that they're about to come up with now. Okay, here's my thing. This movie has been touted as a reboot of sorts, and with that comes a very large responsibility to fix the MCU. And the Russo brothers in a recent interview said that they wanted, that one of the things they realized was missing was a central story, which is very true, right? Because in the first few phases that led up to Endgame, we knew where we were going. Some Avengers films leading up to Thanos. Whether you agreed with the take of some of these characters, which I didn't, but I still had fun watching it, and at the end, when we got to Thanos, I understood how we got there, right? Something that this film, well, these two films, Doomsday and then Secret Wars, will not have the benefit of, because there aren't a whole bunch of things leading up to this. They have not had a consistent tie-in. Now, that's not technically the Russo brothers' job. Their job is just to focus on these movies. However, the person who's overseeing it all, Kevin Feige, that is his fault, because the magic that made that first few phases up until Endgame was, okay, we're gonna make these movies, these are their personal stories, but they're all gonna tie back in together into this big crossover event that we're gonna have at the end, which is similar, if not the same, as what they do in comics. Don't work harder, work smarter. That was an excellent way to do things, even if I didn't agree with every single story and their adaptation for everything. Understood. This go around after that has not been that. It's been wildly all over the place. People who care very little, not just about the characters that they're adapting, but about the overall universe, because some of them weren't even paying attention to the other films and or TV shows that they were supposed to be existing alongside with, which meant for a lot of continuity issues. Now, a lot of fans, because they just loved what the MCU meant to them, because let's just face it, most people aren't like myself and others who read a whole bunch of comic books, and that's fine, because what's good about these films, they're supposed to connect both audiences and have something for us to talk about, which is good, usually. But the problem is when they make everything so far that way, and then the comics and everything this way, then it creates two fan bases that are like, well, this one is better anyway, even though they haven't actually read the comic or anything, and it gets kind of strange. Either way, it's a whole different conversation. But within this, they don't even respect the continuity that they're in, which creates a lot of storyline issues. And even the general fan starts to look at it and becomes disinterested. And these films kind of just suck. And we can see it declining. However, there are some films that people show up for, like, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and the No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine. You see them come up. So it's not like these people don't want to see movies they're interested in, but they're largely becoming disinterested on a general basis. Now, what does this have to do with Avengers Doomsday and the subsequent Secret Wars? They're supposed to be rebooting all this stuff. I don't understand how you can have a true reboot while using almost everyone who's exactly the same and possibly acting like, well, they said a soft reboot, so maybe they're not trying to reboot and make it seem like all the stuff didn't happen, but then they're also trying to, I guess, maybe put everybody all in the same universe. What it looks like, maybe the X-Men and everybody will finally all exist in one place by the end of this, because they're talking about the whole Battle World storyline and rumored, speculation that they could be doing an Avengers X-Men thing in this too. Now, normally, while I don't like to pay attention to too much speculation, because obviously that's what it is, speculation, the Russo brothers have shown that they are willing to take a very popular, nuanced storyline and make the most surface level version of it. And I mean in Civil War, because if anyone's read the Civil War comic, you know the movie pales in comparison to what that was. And they didn't have to do that. They could have done something else. And even when it comes to Thanos, the representation of Thanos is also super surface level. So I wouldn't be surprised, because they're already doing Battleworld, and Battleworld has a whole bunch of nuances that are probably not going to be represented here. And if they are going to do some weird version of Avengers versus X-Men in here, because there's going to be a whole bunch of X-Men characters coming into here, I can see them doing that, once again, on the surface without everything that actual storyline meant, which was really dope, because we don't have an established X-Men yet. Now, why that's also a worry, going back to what I said in the beginning about the X-Men. The X-Men aren't newly casted people. They're using the Fox one, people who are 40 plus that are in this. So it's one thing to put the X-Men in and have new people and go, well, these are the people of the future. But this is also paying more homage to the Fox stuff. Why? Why are we doing that? If we're gonna keep on showing Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, you've got James Marsden, Cyclops, we're doing this. Are we ever going to move forward from that? It seems like we're having a very hard time doing this type of thing. And even when it came to some of the classic characters over in the MCU, just because Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans weren't in the movies anymore, didn't mean that those characters had to go. And we see the MCU was lesser for it, because there was still more story left for those characters to tell. And they didn't know how to do it, because we can see it. But right now we have somebody who's most recognizable for being Tony as Doctor Doom now, where that could have been an entirely different actor. Tony could have still come back. He could have been Iron Man. They could have figured out a way to bring him back. They're doing all this multiverse stuff, so that's a way to do it. And maybe if we're talking about the multiverse and reality shifting, at the end of this, he's alive. At the end of this, Steve Rogers is not an old man anymore. There's so many different things they could do at the end of this while bringing in mutants, but perhaps, no pun intended, but new mutants, right? Like ones that are there, maybe like somebody else playing Wolverine, somebody else playing Cyclops, somebody else doing this. And maybe if you want to have a particular universe that has the Fox ones, and then the other versions of the ones that we have in our universe or something different, I don't know. And the fact that this is so complicated makes me believe that the right thing to really do is to reboot this fully. Let's look at what the DCEU is doing, which by the way, I've never been a fan of what was happening with the DCEU, but now we have James Gunn there, and they decided to pretty much scrap everything that came before and have him be the head of this. We still don't know if that's a good thing, especially with what's going on here. The Creature Commandos was not a bad series. However, we had to see what's going on with Superman. We have to see what's happening there, because if that fails, then it'll change everything else coming there. But the whole point is, they trashed the rest of the stuff and they're starting new. You cannot have a true reboot of the universe, but keep so many things. Now, mind you, he's still getting a side eye because he keeps certain things from Suicide Squad and all that, the things that he made. So it still isn't a full reboot. So, he's kind of an ass for that. But either way, most of this universe is gone. In this, for MCU, you only have one time to make a first impression. And if you are gonna do all these surface level versions of these really cool and deep storylines, how much story are we gonna miss? How many things are we gonna have? Are we gonna revisit Civil War in its proper way? Are we gonna revisit Apocalypse? I don't understand how this reboot really takes place if you don't kind of scrap everything and start from the beginning. And we know that's not what they're doing. I think that these two films could be what they are, but if Kevin Feige, the person who has been looking at things and letting them go and thinking they're satisfactory, is still the guy who's really in control of how things look intellectually and creatively, then we're going to wind up in the same place we are right now. which is a place where we have to think about reboots because continuity and all this stuff is kind of strange. But that's just what I think. Obviously, I come from a place where I am more comic book centric because that's where I know these characters from, but I still have an understanding of the general audience, which they still need stuff. So I have to look at things with two minds. So the reason why I lean more on the comic is because the comic is where you have all these wealth of stories where you're gonna borrow from. And it actually makes your job easier if you find it. But these people keep on reverse engineering their own greatness by trying to create new stories that aren't very good or bastardizations of existing stories, characters, and universes. So yeah, what do you think? When you watched this casting, were you excited? Were you not? Where do you think this is headed, and where do you think they should head? Until then, enter the nerd.